the boogeyman didn't show up. Well, he did show up, I should say, to Madison Square Garden on the call. And
He didn't boogie.
He did not. The Knicks fans did, though. And Josh Hart made sure that, well, Reggie heard it, even though Reggie heard it, with the FU Reggie chants that were serenading the Garden and serenading Reggie Miller in what has been a fantastic series of yesteryear. The energy's back now. And we had Dan Dockich on yesterday. And
Dan's back wearing the Pacers jersey.
He's back in the Pacers. I said, well, if the fix is in on the Jamal Murray not being suspended, fix is in, then the fix is in that your Pacers don't have a chance. And he was like, oh, I know. We're done. They're down 0-2 now. And you've got Brunson, who's playing on a bum ankle. They win, 130, 121. It was, high-scoring, fun game. And, here's Miller making the trip to New York to see his team face the nemesis. And Josh Hart made sure, hey, in case you don't know, they were saying F you, Reggie. Look at him. Coming up to him at the end of the game.
It was both like playful and insulting.
But this is what
it was pretty cool, though.
I crave this type of atmosphere and this type of, rivalry jab.
Yeah.
We miss the Reggie Millers on the court doing things like this to entice the road team. Like, where is the current player, Chad, that is talking crap about the road opponent crowd, not 3 games from now in the series. The very next game, we're coming to the Garden and the boogeyman's here.
It's terrific. It's very 90s. And when did we like the NBA the most? In the 90s, when Reggie Miller was putting both hands around his neck, giving the choke symbol to Spike Lee courtside. Winning time, the ESPN 30 for 30 with Reggie Miller and Spike Lee, where he's saying, oh, you're going to pay good money, you're going to be up there and you're going to talk and you want to be in the action? Well, I'm about to bring you into the action. And he goes right at Spike Lee when he's courtside during the game. Fantastic. This is when NBA action was fantastic. And to make it fantastic again, we need a throwback. Not one throwback, but 2.
Yeah.
Because everyone's comparing Willis Reed and Jalen Brunson last night, coming in injured.
26 points.
And playing the way that he did, right? So this is starting to hook me, and it's hooking me from a nostalgia standpoint of the Willis Reed, Jalen Brunson comparison that game. You don't need to look far for the nostalgia of Reggie Miller courtside calling the game for TNT right there. Josh Hart going to talk trash to him right there, the same way Reggie Miller would have talked trash to Spike Lee in 1994 when all this was going down. It's incredible.
You know what the missing piece just might be? The Knicks being good.
And they are. They're up 2-0.
I know, but I'm saying Chad, we've laughed, I don't know if it was last year or the year prior, the Trae Young, like it's very early in the season, and they're, F Trae Young as they come out of the Garden.
Yeah.
That's regular season stuff. It just feels like the NBA playoffs of yesterday.
Well, I'm getting a feeling of what's not been there for a while. Really, for me, it's not been there since Steph Curry and the Warriors started to take hold of the league, where they were on the rise. Man, this is a team I could watch and get behind, and I like them a lot. But 2008, when it was Lakers-Celtics again in the finals with Kobe and Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. When they won that series, that was cool because – seeing it, that was the first time we saw Lakers-Celtics in high definition, because everything we saw before that was from the 80s.
Yeah.
So seeing those jerseys, that Celtic green, that Lakers gold on the court together in L.A. or back in Boston with the Celtics, now they wear the colored jerseys at home, which I hate, and the white on the road. But either way, seeing those 2 uniforms on the court stirred so much emotion, feelings, nostalgia for me. I'm starting to feel that way about Pacers-Knicks right now, with Reggie Miller a part of it, who was a big part of my childhood watching the NBA.
Yeah.
And now the Knicks players and the city embracing it. Ben Stiller is trolling Reggie Miller in the pregame stand-up, walking behind him and doing different things. Like, it's great. This is fun. This is what New York was made for, too, to be center stage, Broadway. You're in the theater when you're there at Madison Square Garden. Well, it's the world's greatest theater when the sports are good, and they're good right now. And
the moment
you've got some controversy too around it.
The moment is that much larger, 8 points in 9 seconds by Reggie.
Yeah.
Or was it 9 and 8? It was one of those. And just the choke, and then that ends up being a 7-game series. But the dagger was in game 1 in '95. The only thing that was missing from last night to that moment was Marv Albert on the call.
Yeah.
Right? That's really it. It was, everyone calling the game is great. Harlan, Breen, they're Marv Albert, NBA on NBC, or, you've got Costas in some cases. That would be true nostalgia. Now,
well, watching this series makes me think of watching promos for Knicks Pacers while watching Friends and Seinfeld. That's how long it's been. Is seeing NBC's Thursday night lineup, and they're throwing to promos for the weekend's games.
Yeah.
With Knicks and Pacers and other NBA action with those quick hitter promos going back to one of those must-see TV Thursday night shows.
Yeah. Or just
that's what I feel like right now.
Or then, having the night game on Saturday, local news, Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. I mean, just it's funny we're talking about this NBC tie-in with them being a part of the negotiation for the next TV rights deal. I'm absolutely loving this series with moments like this, and I think it's always good to have a little controversy if it is the Knicks. And I still think the series is going to turn out to be a good one because I think the Pacers are going to go home and win a couple games. But if it is the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals and the Celtics, let's get more of this.
Yeah.
Let's get more bad blood going between those two teams.
So I mentioned Doncic said that the fix was in. If you want to believe that.
I thought about you the whole time, Hutton, when you brought it up to him and then what Doncic said when I was seeing this.
So here's Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle. You want to have all the attention back on the series. You want to see this series develop and go 7, right? Pacers, Knicks. Well, down 0-2, here's Rick Carlisle saying, hey, the officials, and this is 2 days after you got Jamal Murray giving the money sign, then throwing a towel, and then he's throwing a heating pad.
Yeah. Prior
to that, Gobert for the T-Wolves, he's suspended for giving the money sign to officials. You have the Jonte Porter situation. The league doesn't want anything to do with this. And here is Rick Carlisle, who's booted, talking about the officiating last night and wanting the Pacers to get their fair shot.
After game 1, we always go through the film. In games where it felt like the whistles weren't balanced, and we pull the clips, and there's a way you can submit them to the NBA office. In the playoffs, when you submit things, the other team sees what you submit, and so there were 29 plays in game 1 that we thought were clearly called the wrong way. I decided not to submit them because I just felt like we get a more balanced whistle tonight. It didn't feel that way. Couple examples. 5:08 of the third. The whole world knows that Halliburton's got a bad back, and Hart comes up and shoves him in the back, and it's all over Twitter right now because a few people have showed it to me. And JB DeRosa is looking right at it. You can see him. He's got vision of the play, and he shoves Ty right in the corner, and there's no whistle, right in the back. And so that was shocking, and there were many others, but I can promise you that we're going to submit these tonight. New York can get ready; they'll see them too. I'm always talking to our guys about not making it about the officials, but we deserve a fair shot, and there's not a consistent balance, and that's disappointing. So. Give New York credit for the physicality that they're playing with, but their physicality is rewarded and ours is penalized, just time after time. And so
the last 10 seconds there are exactly what I think will ring true with officiating in Game 3.
That was a masterclass in how to keep it together and stay calm while complaining about the officiating and specifically 29 different plays in Game 1, and he didn't give a specific number for Game 2 mistakes from the officials, but said they would be submitting tape to the league from Game 2, especially that one play. And I went back and watched the play he's talking about, and Josh Hart does shove him right in the back,
so
pretty obviously, as he's playing defense. It was one of those where if it's away from the ball, you just feel like you can get away with more, and he just gives him a shove, and it's right in front of the official, and they don't do anything. I also can't help but think of Jim Carrey every time I see Rick Carlisle speak.
So this is from earlier today. How many clips did they send to the NBA? Brian Windhorst, the Pacers reportedly sent 78 clips of bad calls against the Knicks to NBA offices.
That's a lot.
78. So they've got, let's see, there were 49 from Game 2 and 29 from Game 1. That's a lot of clips. Now, some of them are just obvious. Some of them, what was the game earlier this year, Chad, where it was just a phantom foul? They called a foul. You remember this? It was like, it may have been a Knicks game. May have been the Knicks.
Yeah, it was the one where they had to come back and apologize.
Yes, almost.
I think it was a Knicks game where maybe the Knicks and 76ers.
Was it on Brunson, maybe? I don't know. But,
no, it was some team that was, I remember the whole talk was, if we were one of these big teams, this wouldn't happen.
Now, they have, the league has come back and said that they blew a call against Tyrese Maxey and the Knicks in Game 2 of the 76ers series. I mean, it's been across the board. I know the Pacers were a part of a game. This was a month or so ago where the NBA had to come back and say, yeah, our officials got it wrong. That was a game the Pacers ended up winning. Not a playoff game. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it's across the board. I think it was Miami, maybe, was the game, the Miami Heat. Anyway, it's always going to be controversy with officiating. There's always going to be that sentiment of, that they've got it out for us. Chad, I want to load up on the Pacers in Game 3 right now, just based on the sentiment of not just Rick Carlisle, but the fact that if the fix is in, they want this series to continue, not be over, which would be the argument for what they're looking for in not suspending Jamal Murray, right?
Yeah.
In the other series.
And maybe this happened a lot more. I mean, I know Phil Jackson complained a lot about officials, and other coaches have.
But speaking about getting back to the 90s, he's mentioning physicality. Let's get back to the 90s and the physicality.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, as long as both sides are going to be allowed to be physical, that's always the ultimate backhanded compliment of, I really want to congratulate the Knicks on their physicality. It seems theirs was rewarded and ours was penalized.
Yeah.
So, coming on the heels of the Jamal Murray non-suspension, it's not good when the leaders of your sport, head coaches, top players, are still acting like the fix is actually in. Not just, hey, this was a bad call, it shifted the game, but there were, 78 bad calls.
Over the series so far. That's what they've said, according
submitted.
to the Indiana.
Yeah, 29 plays he counted in the first game. They did not submit. And now 78, I guess they're going to combine the first two with those. Yeah. I would hope so with that. So, 49 more in that one. It's crazy. It's crazy because it lends itself to some credibility when you look at Jamal Murray not getting suspended and now this. And we're joking about it yesterday. Boy, the league wants the Knicks to continue playing. It's going to be good for ratings, good for that city, good for the city that hosts the NBA. That's where their headquarters are located, in Manhattan. That's good for everyone. So it is great. It is great for everyone. It is good for everyone, but it's not great when Rick Carlisle, the coach of the other team, is sitting there basically saying, yeah, we're getting screwed over by the league and by the refs.
Chad, here's to more of this, just controversy. You know, it's in the NFL, what's the theory? Any publicity is good publicity for the league. Even in like the Deflategate offseason, everyone's talking about the NFL.
It's also smart.
Headline one.
It's also smart of Rick Carlisle to publicly go after the officiating as they go back to Indianapolis, because that goes in the heads of the officials. If it's this much talk about it, I don't think you go into a game thinking we got to slant this thing now for the Pacers.
Is
now
it the
they're
same
home.
Crew?
But I just think officials in general. If the talk going into Game 3 is the fact that the officials have effed it up for the Pacers, even if you don't want to think about it, you're thinking about it if you're an official when you go back to Indianapolis.
But even in the
and it could lead to some good calls for the Pacers.
It probably will.
I'm saying it doesn't hurt if you're Rick Carlisle to talk about it.
It doesn't hurt. I want to see what the NBA will do penalty-wise for him. We'll see. The pocketbook-wise, wallet-wise. But
well, he ain't getting suspended. We know that.
No, no. But like in the NFL, you can talk trash about officials. The next crew is probably going to be along the lines of what they've called all year. Like if you have Jerome Boger, it's gonna be a discombobulated
flag fest.
Yes, and not very well explained. Meanwhile, if you end up with Hockey League Jr., you end up with probably a crew that's going to call a ton of holding penalties. It feels like it evens out, but it really just a new crew that's going about how they would always do it. And my guess is, going back to your overall point, probably we've seen Carlisle turn in plays that this new crew would end up screwing up in the regular season. I don't know, maybe the crews follow them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm fascinated about the psychology of the officials in all of sports, from sport to sport and how it differs. But again, I don't think it hurts you at all if you're Rick Carlisle to go publicly at the officials in the first two games, because you're trying to place, even in their subconscious, it's time for the Pacers to get a few breaks. Now that we're going back to Indianapolis, let's see to it, officials. I don't think the officials are going to go into it saying, all right, now we got to put here's the scoreboard. Let's even it out now with the fouls. But I do think it sits in their head. I do.
But here's the thing, though. To the NBA's credit, there's more transparency in the NBA than any league when it comes to officials because of the final 2-minute report.
Yeah.
Where they do publicly put out there what they screwed up. So a couple of days ago, last 2-minute report confirms 4 missed calls down the stretch of Pacers-Knicks Game 1. That's the league saying that. So, the NFL would fine you as much as they possibly could if a coach came out and said this about officials. What's the Major League Baseball policy? You just go out there and chew out the umpire, and that's pretty much it, I guess. You get thrown out of the game, and it's on to game 2 of the series at home or whatever.
There's not a lot of discussion about admission that something was wrong, because when they review, you have the review process now in Major League Baseball, so you can challenge and get it right.
Ball strikes, all that,
they don't say anything.
But so here, the NBA,
that's a good question. No one's ever. It's kind of taboo also to talk about balls and strikes.
Yes.
A lot of times because it is subjective from ump to ump and game to game. But when that happens,
I like the fact that the league assesses every correct or missed call in the final 2 minutes. When the game, because most of those games, I've got the 10-point rule with 3 to play. If it's 3 minutes, 10-point game, I'll turn on the game because it's going to tighten up in a game of runs. The NBA's putting out in Game 1, Miles Turner should have been called for an illegal screen. You got Naismith, who should have been called for a kickball violation with 52 seconds left. Miles Turner should have been called for a defensive 3-second violation.
And you could not do this for the entire game.
No,
it would be too much. But that last 2 minutes, I'm with you. I like it.
But at least we're seeing what the NBA sees and confirming whatever we're seeing and hearing Rick Carlisle say. So I like the transparency in that aspect. It's not like the NBA's trying to hide the bad calls. They're putting it out there for us, at least in the final 2 minutes. Not the 78 calls that Carlisle's put in through 2 games.
I will be paying close attention to the officiating.
Are we loading up right now in the Pacers game 3?
Game 3. I am, yeah. I'm with you. I think there's going to be a course correction. Because now it's you don't want a quick series. You want this thing to go back to New York. So you want the Pacers to win a couple games. If you could get the Knicks in 7, that's the NBA's dream.
Oh.
I'm saying the Knicks have to win Game 7,
and then have Reggie back there
at Madison Square Garden. that is their dream. Spike Lee, Ben Stiller, everyone up front.
And then if the Pacers win and see Reggie, what does Reggie Miller do if the Pacers win?
I mean, he's not going to be professional. I'll tell you that much. He's not going to be an impartial TNT NBA broadcaster at that moment, and I don't want him to be.
Don't you put parameters on him.
I want him to turn and have the Superman shirt, his old jersey on underneath.
Don't restrict what he could do. Yeah. Don't you put boundaries on what he could do.
Don't you put boundaries on that young man. Reggie, I'm not here to put boundaries on you. You do whatever the hell you want if the Pacers win in Game 7.
Oh, yep. Chad, have you seen?
Can he get Rick Smits back also to the Garden? What if he just
Mark Jackson comes back?
Yeah, the Davis brothers, Antonio and Dale. He's flanked by those guys. Remember those dudes?
Yes.
You didn't want to fight those guys back in the day. The Davis brothers were some tough dudes. Get them around him, surrounding him. That's his. The Duncan Dutchman can be his bodyguard.
Rick Smits.
I'm all for this. Mark Jackson was on that team. Derek McKay. Aaron McKee was another guy, yes. Right? Aaron McKee was on NBA Jam. He was one of the 2 Pacers players on NBA Jam back in the day of the game.
Haywood Workman.
And man, would he work you. Old Haywood Workman.
Byron Scott was on this team.
Byron Scott. Was Mark Jackson on that team or a later Pacers team?
He was on this team. Yep. 6'1", 180, Mark Jackson.
Mark Jackson could talk some smack, too.
Let's see. Scott Haskin was hurt for this series. Vern Fleming, Dwayne Farrell, Dale Davis, and Antonio Davis.
The Davis brothers.
There you go.
Tough dudes.
And then Rick Smits from Marist.
Rick Smits was so, as a Bulls fan back in the day, when Jordan and the Bulls would play those teams, he always was like the most frustrating guy. He had that blonde
I forgot how tall he was. I thought he was just 7 feet.
Remember, he had the legit blonde mullet.
Yes.
Like, he looked like Doug Drabeck.
He's 7'4".
Yeah.
I thought he was 7 feet.
And he had a 15-footer.
He's 57
He kind of had the Luke Longley 15-footer, 15 to 17-footer down.
Second overall pick in the 1988 NBA draft.
What a glorious time. Bring that back. That's what this series is doing. It's kind of bringing back those memories
from the Netherlands. Rick Smits.
The Duncan Dutchman.
He appeared in...
they didn't call him the Duncan Dutchman by accident. Definitely from the Netherlands.
He appeared in Coming to America during a scene filmed in '87 while playing at Marist. He was at the Garden. They filmed a scene with him playing right before they... It says here, this is Wikipedia. Marist was playing St. John's at the Garden, and Rick Smits was featured in Coming to America.
That's amazing. I remember that now because the Soul Glow family was at the game. Was that where they got up in the grease? The Afro Sheen was still on the chair when they got up in Coming to America? Was that at Madison Square Garden, or was that in church where that happened, where they all got up? I do remember that scene.
He played until 2000.
He's on a date with the girl that ends up with Eddie Murphy's character. The main Soul Glow family guy, Eric LaSalle, actor that went on to stardom in ER, was one of the doctors on ER. But he was watching St. John's and Marist in the Garden.
Okay, so...
It's all coming back to me now.
Okay, his daughter is currently the player relations coordinator for the Indiana Pacers.
Nice. Well, she can get him a ticket.
There's that mullet. There's that beautiful Kentucky waterfall.
If Alan Jackson was from the Netherlands, this is what he would be. What he would look like. Look at that hair and that face. Just put a black cowboy hat
and
on
a mustache.
Rick Smits.
In a dirty stash.
This guy's singing Chattahoochee, but in Dutch.
Yep. And there's Gary Payton behind him, I think. You see him? In the road jersey?
That does look like Gary Payton for sure. Also kind of looks like Harold Miner, baby Jordan.
Could be. Is it Vince Carter? I can't tell.
No.
It's two players on the opponent's team. It looks like they're guarding each other.
Yeah, that guy.
Rick Smits.
That guy just looks by the shoulder size, looks smaller than Vince Carter.
7'4". He's not living a comfortable life right now at 59 and 7'4".
We need to ask Dan if Rick is still in Indy. I'm guessing he is if his daughter went on to be the, media relations person for the Pacers?
His daughter's there, yeah. That's what it says. It doesn't say where he currently resides.
I could see the Duncan Dutchman putting up roots in Indy. Putting down roots. You don't put up roots, you put down roots. But he put down roots in Indy. I can see that with that guy.
We need to try to find Rick Smits. Where are they now?
Can we go live via Zoom from the Netherlands if he's there?
Sure.
And have him on the show?
Yeah. Where was Trey's friend from?
Guys, we're going to give you the 95 Pacers roster and just start with the most obscure and go up. Like someone who's not been requested for an interview in years. What was the one guy you said who was injured in that series in 95 that I never even heard of his name? Vern Fleming.
Vern Fleming.
Fleming would be a good one to target.
No, it was Scott Haskin.
Scott Haskin. I want to get Scott Haskin on the show to talk about that series.
Head coach Larry Brown.
We need someone on that played in that series for the Pacers. Pre-Pacers hosting those games.
Or both Davis brothers.
Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine? I would leave the show.
But see, I'd
be so frightened and intimidated. Hutton would just be in the middle block. We put both Davis brothers around him, and Hutton would fire off all the questions.
30 years from now, are we going to be discussing the rosters of the teams in the league right now?
I'm not.
I know, but are kids now?
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, that's how a league survives.
I don't think so.
Not just survives, but prospers. You need. In 1995, I was 13. You need 12 to 17-year-olds today, 30 years from now, to go back and say, man, remember that Reggie Miller, Ben Stiller, Josh Hart, Rick Carlisle series between the Pacers and Knicks back in 2024?
But it's more about...
That's what you need.
But it's
I don't
more
know
about,
if we're going to have that.
Do you remember Jericho Sims from the Knicks roster?
Jericho Sims.
Or...
Where did he play in college? That name sounds very familiar.
Texas.
Okay.
Making $1.9 million. Jericho Sims.
Played for Tom Penders at Texas.
You got Shake Milton and Dwayne Washington. That's what we just did. You just went through
Shake Milton.
So I wonder. I just don't get that same vibe.
Yeah, I don't.
But it's because I don't see. The only time I see the NBA on is if I'm at a bar or restaurant, or if I'm flipping and I know the 3-minute rule that I have. Like that's. I don't hear anyone discussing it. In a non-NBA market, do you hear anyone here at 6th and Peabody ever discussing the NBA? I don't, unless it's JD telling us what game to bet.
It's so hard to find monocultural moments in America anymore. And what monocultural is, everybody's tuned into one thing. Sunday night, I feel like everyone on my Twitter feed was tuned into the roast of Tom Brady. It's rare when you even get that to happen. Yeah. And that is my personally curated feed of people I follow, all talking about the same thing live. Now try to replicate that with a bunch of 12 to 17-year-olds that are at home on a school night as school's winding down, about to end. Are they all, or most of the sports fans or sports playing kids out there, are they tuned in to Knicks Pacers? I don't think so, the way we would have been back in the day. But I don't have a 12 to 17-year-old to know if they're really paying attention to that series or not.
You will soon.
But that's what you got to have. That's what you need to have long-lasting. The kids of today that will have kids 30 years from now, they need to be all in on this and watching a Knicks Pacers series in 2054 saying, remember that 2024 great series, the same way we're sitting here reminiscing about 1995 Knicks Pacers.
But we looked at the Pacers roster because of the Knicks epic series and Reggie Miller. But also the rivalry. Right? That's what you remember.
Yeah. It would be great if Josh Hart was also the color commentator for whoever's calling that game 30 years from now. I mean, this is a perfect confluence.
Yeah, it is.
Of things that are happening at once with this series.
Unless it goes Game 7 and we see Reggie get the final laugh.
Well, I wasn't really all in until last night with all these things happening, and even when Dan came on and with the Pacers jersey, said, I'm in. I am all in on this series. I'm all in on the Pacers. We're going to go to Game 7 if there's a Game 7 at Madison Square Garden. And I was thinking, man, I may need to watch. And Dan was right. I'm into this thing also now.
Patrick Beverley has been suspended 4 games without pay by the NBA for multiple incidents. Yeah, without pay.
Oh, in October?
4 games. So
how will the Bucks ever recover from him missing those 4 games? Does this go towards their in-season tournament tally in the record? I mean, who cares? 4 games at the start of the season.
4 games without pay.
The good players will have load management during those games.
But
barely play.
Draymond Green was suspended 5 games for whatever he did last.
I think if you do something stupid, Hutton, you said that you're in favor of the dumbass tax, which I like. If you do something stupid in the playoffs, I think you should be suspended or punished in the next time you're in the playoffs. It should not be a regular season. I don't want guys who are their season's ending that does something dumb at the end of that game, knowing they're eliminated, to get suspended or fined for the first 4 games. No, either hit them really hard in the pocketbook if they don't get back to the playoffs, or the next time they're in the playoffs, that's when they serve their suspension.
Yes.
That would hurt their bottom line if you're a free agent looking for somewhere to go. Because a guy like Patrick Beverley, you might want for veteran play in the playoffs, knowing you're probably going to be a playoff team. Yeah, and if you know he's suspended for the first 4 playoff games, you may not be paying that guy as much.
Yep. And then, the NBA's reaction or response to Draymond Green for the 5 games was, we're also considering past acts into this 5-game suspension. And that affected their in-season tournament, I believe. But again, 4 games is, according to the NBA, harsh.
They should be considering past and future acts with Patrick Beverley.
Well,
because the future acts were his behavior in the locker room.
But more importantly, throwing basketballs at fans.
Well, throwing basketballs, behavior afterwards, A real lack of, I thought, total contrition by claiming it was because of something someone said.
And the night before saying I have to be better on social. But,
he
but
said,
you're right.
Said
They
I had to be
mentioned
better
both.
in his,
Inappropriate
on his
interaction
podcast too.
Inappropriate interaction with a reporter during media availability. Now, inappropriate interaction is interesting to me. That's directly from the release. Because how many times have we been in a locker room where a player has said, hey, man, get out. I'm not talking to you. Or you have the back and forth. We know of several just off the top of our head. Inappropriate interaction is interesting.
I think that...
Do you subscribe to my podcast? No, the GTFO.
This is like obscenity. I think you know it when you see it.
Well, it followed what it followed.
There was no history with him and that woman. None. Nothing she wrote bad about him.
According to other reporters, he has done this before about the podcast line. Yeah,
and that's inappropriate interaction. My point is, it's vague on purpose. Inappropriate interaction with a media member?
Yeah.
Hutton, from what we've seen, if someone writes something bad about someone or says something awful on a show about them, and a player in the NFL says, hey, I don't want to talk to him right now. Get out of here. We'll talk later, whatever. I think you're going to excuse that
well,
when
not talk
there's a
later.
History.
Like,
I don't want to talk.
I don't want to talk to you.
I think my point is you can't excuse that. And I'm not saying that every player should be out there trying to go back at a reporter because they wrote something negative about them. I'm just saying there was nothing that woman had done.
No.
There's no history with her and Pat Beverley. She's not even an on-air talent or writer. She's a producer.
And it wasn't
that's not saying things about Pat Beverley on air. So there was no reason for it.
Right, and he did call her and apologize.
He did,
according to her. But yeah, they're investigating the whole thing with the Bucks and Pacers and the interaction between Beverley and the fan.
The investigation should be pretty easy.
I mean, my investigation was just watching the bench.
Yeah.
Did anyone else even bat an eye at whatever was said to Patrick Beverley?
Yeah, talk to everyone on the front row that were fans that could hear what was going on, and then talk to the team. And if no one can, first off, if no one could back up that it was something so far beyond the pale
I haven't heard from another player
what's
say
acceptable, which to me would only be a racial slur that he would have said to him to warrant anything close to that, then your investigation is over.
Reggie Miller had F-bombs chanted at him, and he didn't turn around and throw anything.
No, he kind of laughed when Josh Hart told him. He's like, yeah, I hear it.
Yeah, Cancun on 3.
I think Reggie Miller loved it.
Yeah. And Patrick Beverley's been known for, wanting to get under the skin of players defensively. Didn't like it when the fans got after him. Threw basketballs, hit a woman in the side of the head. 4-game suspension for that.